On a lonely hill in southeastern Turkey, a set of buried stones has turned archaeology upside down. The place is called Göbekli Tepe, and it is unlike anything else in human history. Long before the pyramids, long before Stonehenge, even before the written word, people here carved massive pillars and arranged them in circles. The stones stand taller than a person, some reaching over 16 feet, and they are covered in animals, abstract shapes, and symbols that no one has been able to fully explain. For decades, scholars wondered why a community of hunter-gatherers would pour so much effort into building something so monumental. The carvings seemed to tell a story, but the language of stone remained frustratingly silent. Then came a surprising twist. Artificial intelligence was turned loose on the mystery. AI systems scanned every carving, every detail, every repeating pattern hidden in the pillars. The results were staggering, suggesting that the symbols were not random decorations, but part of a complex code. What the AI uncovered challenges our assumptions about humanity's earliest civilization. It suggests that the people of Gobekli Tepe were not primitive tribes wandering aimlessly, but a culture with advanced symbolic thought. Some researchers even claim the site may have been the first known book, written in stone rather than paper. Imagine a world where the story of humanity's first monument is not just ritual, not just religion, but something far more structured, an attempt at recording memory. The AI noticed patterns in the animals carved across different pillars. Foxes, snakes, vultures, and wild boars appeared again and again, not randomly placed, but carefully positioned. The repetition hinted at a system, almost like words in a sentence. When analyzed statistically, the carvings aligned with patterns we see in early proto-writing. This meant Göbekli Tepe might be thousands of years older than writing, yet already carrying the seeds of it. The discovery also suggested that people here may have been tracking celestial events. Some pillars appeared to map the night sky, showing constellations in a way that only makes sense if the builders were astronomers. The vulture carvings, for example, seemed to correspond to stars in Sagittarius. Snakes mirrored the winding path of the Milky Way. AI simulations proposed that one pillar might record the date of a comet strike around 10900 BCE, an event linked to dramatic climate change at the end of the Ice Age. If true, the stones are not just monuments, but messages, warnings carved into the earth for future generations. The idea is haunting. Hunter-gatherers, thought to be simple, were preserving knowledge in a way that survived millennia. This reframes what we think civilization even means. We often imagine that writing, farming, and cities came first, and monuments followed. Gobekli Tepe turns that order upside down. Here, it seems, the monument came first. The people gathered to build, to carve, to remember. Then farming and settlement followed later. AI helped uncover how consistent the artistic style was. The carvings were not crude sketches, but precise engravings, suggesting teams of specialists who knew exactly what they were doing. The stones themselves were shaped with care, hauled from nearby quarries using methods still not fully understood. Even more intriguing, the site was deliberately buried after centuries of use. The circles of pillars were filled in with dirt, as though the builders wanted to preserve them rather than destroy them. Why bury something so monumental? Some believe it was a sacred closing of a chapter, sealing away knowledge that only future generations, or perhaps future minds, would rediscover. The AI analysis also highlighted symmetries and hidden geometries. Pillars were not placed haphazardly, but aligned in subtle patterns that may reflect astronomical cycles. It was as if the builders encoded the rhythms of the sky into the very foundation of their world. This revelation brings Gobekli Tepe closer to being a prehistoric observatory, a cathedral of the stars. But it is also a place of myth, a meeting point of human imagination and cosmic order. The carvings of predators, prey, and abstract shapes may have been more than records. They may have been rituals. AI detected clusters of animal symbols that repeat in sequences, almost like ceremonial scripts. These clusters suggest that gatherings at Gobekli Tepe were not random feasts, but carefully structured events, guided by shared knowledge. The presence of headless human figures carved on some stones adds another layer of mystery. Were these depictions of sacrifice, mythological beings, or metaphors of transformation. AI does not provide final answers, but it reveals the structure hidden within chaos. By showing us the order in the carvings, it pushes us to consider that meaning was always there, waiting. This shifts the narrative of humanity's rise. Rather than stumbling slowly toward civilization, our ancestors may have already possessed profound symbolic understanding. Gobekli Tepe, in this sense, becomes the missing chapter in the human story. A place where myth, astronomy, ritual, and memory converged. And now, with the help of artificial intelligence, we can begin to read it again. The more we learn, the stranger it becomes. Some argue that Gobekli Tepe's builders were influenced by catastrophic events in the Ice Age. The comet theory, supported by AI pattern recognition, ties the carvings to survival stories. If a disaster shaped their world, then the carvings may be a record of resilience, a guide to endure chaos. Others see in it the seeds of religion, the first attempts to connect the human with the divine. The towering T-shaped pillars, some say, are stylized human forms, guardians holding up the sky. The AI models found proportions in the pillars that echo the human body, as though stone and flesh were mirrored. This raises questions about whether Gobekli Tepe was not just a temple, but also a reflection of identity. Were the builders carving themselves into eternity? The burial of the site remains the most puzzling act. AI cannot explain intention, but it can highlight anomalies. The way Earth was packed in suggests it was done with care, almost ritualistically. This was not abandonment, but preservation, as though the site was meant to sleep until rediscovered. That rediscovery happened in the 1990s, when Klaus Schmidt uncovered the first stones. He called it the world's first temple, but the AI is now pushing us to think beyond temples. Perhaps it was a library, a memory palace carved in limestone. Perhaps it was a warning system, a survival manual coded in animals and stars. Or perhaps it was all of these at once, layers of meaning stacked together. The truth may never be fully known. But what is certain is that Gobekli Tepe forces us to rethink the timeline of humanity. It tells us that people, even without cities or farming, could come together to create something vast. It tells us that imagination came before agriculture, that story came before surplus. And now, with AI as our tool, we can glimpse the echoes of those stories. Every fox, every snake, every vulture may be part of a forgotten sentence. Every stone a page in a book that predates writing. This is the power of combining ancient mystery with modern technology. It allows us to bridge 12,000 years of silence. Gobekli Tepe is not just a site. It is a dialogue across time. The builders carved their knowledge into stone. We buried it, we forgot it, and now, with AI, we are finally learning to read again. And perhaps the greatest revelation is not about the past, but about us. That even in the deepest prehistory, humans longed to leave a message. That even before writing, we were already writers. And that somewhere in the stones of Gobekli Tepe, the first chapter of humanity's story still waits to be told.